Good morning, students. Today I am going to do the next part of the chapter Globalization and Indian Economy. In this part, you will do factors that have enabled globalization and will continue with liberalization. In the last class, we have seen that it is because of the multinational corporations, globalization is possible. Sitting in one corner of the world, a multinational corporation is able to produce the goods globally. How is this possible? This is possible because of improvement in transportation technology and as well as communication technology. Today, the goods can move very fast from one corner of the world to the another corner of the world. We have so much of improved water transportation system as well as air transportation system. Today we can see the large containers are used for the fastest delivery of the goods. Let us see what are these containers means. You can see in this picture which is shown here, you can see these containers. So the goods which are packed, they are dumped into these containers and then they are transported through the ships. So goods are placed in containers that can be loaded intact into ships also. They can be even passed through the railways, planes or the trucks also. These containers have led to huge reduction in port handling cost and increased the speed which exports can reach market. Now, because of this easy method of packaging, it's very easy to transport the goods fast as well as they will reach early to the markets. Similarly, today we see the cost of air transport has fallen. It is because today there are so many private sector industries which are in this air transportation. This has enabled much greater volume of goods being transported by airlines. Several goods today are transported by the airlines also so that they can reach fast to the different parts of the world. That's about your transportation. We have a next very important factor due to which today globalization is possible. And what is that factor? We all know that is your information and communication technology. How a person, a company sitting in US will come to know how much production is done in the other country and how will they pay the money to the labor who is working in their industry or factory which is in the other country, or how they will communicate with the people, those who are working in their company in the different parts of the world. Have you ever imagined? This all is today through the internet, the world of internet, which all of us know. So today, if I am able to teach you, it is because of this connection or improvement in the communication technology. Today in the lockdown, we are using so many these new methods to teach the school children. This all is part of the new information and communication technology. So in recent times, technology in the areas of telecommunication, computers and internet, telecommunication facilities include telegraph, telephone, including mobile phones, fax, etc. are used. And today this technology is there even in a very far remote areas also. This all is possible because of the satellite communication devices. As definitely we all know, computers today has entered almost every field of activity. You go to any office, you go to a bank, you will see the work is done through the computers. So every field, education fields, every field today, there is the use of these computers. And we all have ventured into the amazing world of internet, where we get lots of information on anything which we want. So internet allows us to send an instant electronic mail, which is called as email. If I have to send any message to the sir or anyone, I use the email. In the same way, emails are exchanged between the offices, between the two people. And then we have voicemails other than emails, and at a very, very low cost. All these is available to us at a very low cost. There is a very good example, and you have to learn this example. Learn means you have to go through this example at least once or twice, so that whenever this they will ask you about the IT sector, how is this IT sector used in globalization, you can give this example. One of a news magazine which is published for London readers is to be designed and printed in Delhi. Now amazing, see, it's a London magazine. The readers are from London, but it is designed and printed in Delhi. So let's see how is this done. The text of the magazine is sent through the internet to the Delhi office. So the text, what all should be there in that magazine, that is sent from London to Delhi through the internet. Then the designers in the Delhi office will get the order how to design and magazine from the office in London using telecommunication facilities. So how the designing should be. So that also they will get the messages from the to the telecommunication. Then the designing is done on a computer in Delhi. After designing, again for every designing, the approval is taken from the office from the London. After printing, after designing, finalizing, printing of the magazines is done in Delhi, and then it is sent by air to London so that it can reach very fast. Even the payment of money for designing and printing from a bank in London to a bank in Delhi is done through the e-banking system. Today, if I have to pay any kind of fees or anything, I don't have to go to any bank or anywhere to pay it, or any institution. I can sit at my home and easily do the e-banking, through which I can pay to anybody in the world also. So that's how this IT sector is used in the globalization process. We have few questions here. In the above example, underline the words describing the use of technology in production. Which terms are used here? E-banking is used, internet is used, email is used, voicemail is used, designing on computer is used. These are all the new words which are describing this use of technology. Then we have next question. How is information technology connected with globalization? Just now we have seen, without information technology, globalization cannot be there. Information between the producers and the consumers, information from one office to another office, information for one MNC which is sitting in America, they will get all information what is happening in their factories or industries which are located all over the world. So would globalization have been possible without expansion of IT? No. Without IT, information technology, there cannot be any globalization. Today, if a person is sitting in one corner of the world and is able to produce the goods all over the world, it is because of this IT sector. He is able to send the messages easily. He is even able to see what is happening in his factories or industries, and he is able to even pay the labor sitting in one corner of the world. And children, that completes your globalization. One big part of the chapter is done. We are starting with the next topic, which is liberalization. The term liberalization of foreign trade and foreign investment policy. Children, we have done what is foreign trade. When a country trades with several other countries, it is foreign trade. When the goods are exchanged or when the production is done in the different countries. What is foreign investment? when the investment is done by the multinational corporations in other countries. Like Ford Motors invested in Chennai. It had set up its factory in Chennai. They invested 1700 crores of rupees. That is your foreign investment. Now let's look into the term liberalization. Liberal. Just the term, you split the term liberal. Liberal means free. Free. What is liberalization in economy means? Liberalization means freedom to produce the goods, freedom to export any amount of goods, freedom to import any amount of goods. That is the meaning. So freedom of trade. It's in simply freedom of trade. Now, let me tell you first of all why this liberalization has to be started in 1991. Then I will show you the important points in this part. Before 1991, I am talking about, and after the independence. In 1947, when we got independence, Britishers left us very poor. And after the independence, our government has laid a lots of industries. Even lot of private people, private industrialists have set up their industries. So we were just starting our industrialization. By the time we were just starting the industrialization, European countries have already established industrialization. So we were just setting up our industries, but they have already set up industries and they were large production and they were able to compete with one another. But we, India, because we were just setting up our industries, we could not compete with the other countries. So our government at that time, Indian government, it had set up certain trade barriers. Now what is the trade barrier? Restrictions. Because at that time our producers were just setting up of their industries, just coming up, they could not compete with the other countries. So our government had laid certain restrictions. What were the restrictions? That only a fixed amount of the goods will be imported and only fixed amount of the goods will be exported. What will happen if only fixed amount of the goods will be imported? That means if only less amount of goods will come from the other countries, our producers will not go in loss. Not like Chinese toys. In the case of Chinese toys, what happened? Many Chinese toys came to India and our Indian producers went in loss. So that is example after 1991. Now I am telling you before 1991, our producers were just putting their first step to set up their industries. They could not compete with the other countries. That is why our government had set up certain restrictions on trade. So there was restriction on imports and there was restriction on the exports so that our producers do not go in a loss. But from 1947 to 1990, our government gave producers enough time to set up their industries and also to become big producers. By 1990, now our government realized that our producers were ready to compete with the other countries. Because now so many years, they have now established well. Now they can compete with the other countries. So in 1991, the government changed its policies and government removed all the trade restrictions. What do you mean by removal of trade restrictions or removal of trade barriers? That means now any amount of imports can come to India, any amount of exports can be there from India. That is the meaning. So now our producers will compete with the producers of the world. That is what our government had laid policy after 1991. So that is removal of trade barriers, removal of restrictions. That is known as liberalization. So let's just quickly go through this, what I have told you. Let us return to the example of imports of Chinese toys in India. Suppose the Indian government puts a tax on import of toys. What would happen? You all remember the example of Chinese toys. If suppose the government puts some restriction on the toys, imports, the tax on the import increases. Suppose the government increases the tax on imports. What will happen? There will be less import into our country, because more imports, the tax is more. So nobody would like to get the imported toys, because that will increase the cost of the toys. So because of the tax, buyers will have to pay a higher price. Are you able to follow, children? I am telling, if we are getting Chinese toys to India, in earlier example, our producers were going in loss. So suppose our government, Indian government, puts or increases the tax on the toys which are coming to India. So earlier the Chinese toys were sold at 100 rupees, but if we put tax upon that, suppose 100 rupees tax on a 100 rupee toy, what will happen to the cost of the product? That will automatically become 200 rupees, and a consumer will not buy a toy for 200 rupees of that is the two Chinese toy. Rather, he will prefer to buy the Indian toy, which is already of 200 rupees. So at that time, Indian producer will get the profit. That's what I am explaining. So Chinese toys will no longer be cheap in the market, and imports from China will automatically reduce, and that will benefit our Indian producers. This will happen only if India will put restriction on the imports. Tax on import is an example of trade barrier. If the government puts heavy tax on imports, that is called as trade barrier. Barrier का मतलब होता है रुकावट. Imports में रुकावट, exports में रुकावट. So limited import होगा, limited export होगा. It is called barrier because some restriction has been set up. Government can use trade barriers to increase or decrease foreign trade. ये government के ऊपर है. It is on the government, that it's up to the government whether the government has to reduce this trade barrier or to increase the trade barrier. If the government sees that our producers are going in a loss, then our government can put trade barrier. So that is how it can do. The Indian government, after independence, this story I've already told you, I'm just reading it. The Indian government after independence had put barriers on foreign trade and foreign investment. This was considered necessary to protect the producers within the country from foreign competition. So after independence, our producers were not in a position to compete with the foreign countries. So at that time, our government had put restriction that our country's producers will not compete with the producers of the other countries. And so there was a trade restriction. Thus, India allowed imports of only essential items. Restriction doesn't mean that we were not trading completely with the other countries. We were trading, but very little goods we were importing, and that to those goods which were essential for our country. For example, we were importing some petroleum products, we were importing some machineries, we were importing some fertilizers which were very much required for our industries. So, it's not only India. Any developed country, you take any European country, all the countries in the beginning of their development have given protection to their producers. That means every developed country also, whether it is Britain or France or Germany, all have protected their producers by doing or by putting restrictions. Starting around 1991, some policies were changed in India. The government decided now the time had come for the Indian producers to compete with the producers around the globe. This I told you that after 1990, government realized that our producers are now strong. Now they can compete with the other countries' producers. It felt that competition. Our government also felt that this competition will improve a lot of performance of the producers, because if there is no competition, producers can produce even an inferior quality products. If there is competition, our producers will produce good quality products. So, to improve the quality, this decision was taken, and this decision was supported by many international organizations, including WTO, which you will do later on. WTO is World Trade Organization, which controls trade of the whole world. Thus, let's now sum up this part. Thus, barriers on foreign trade and foreign investment were removed to a large extent. So, not only in India, many countries of the world have removed the barriers on the trade. This means that now, what do you mean by removal of barriers? That any amount of goods can be imported, any amount of goods can be exported, as well as any foreign company can come to India and set up their factories and offices here, which you can see now in Delhi, Bangalore, Chennai, Mumbai, all over you will see every country's factory, banks, offices are located in India now. So, removing barriers or restrictions set by government is what is known as liberalization. So, the term liberalization means removing barriers or restrictions which are set by the government on the trade. In other words, it means free trade. With liberalization of trade, businesses are allowed to make decisions freely. When the liberalization took place, now it is the industries, now it is the producers who can, or it is the traders who can now take any decision freely. Decision means how much to produce, how much to export, how much to import, what should be the price of the product, what should be the quality of the product. Everything is decided now by the traders. The government imposes much less restrictions today. So today, if you will see, there are very less restrictions on the trade. It's completely a free trade all over the world, especially in the developing nations. The question here is, there are two questions. Question number 1, what do you understand by liberalization of foreign trade? Now you have just now done. It means removal of restrictions or barriers on trade. Next, that means any amount of goods can be exported, imported, any amount of trade can be done anywhere in the world. Next question is very interesting. Tax on import is one type of trade barrier. If any goods are coming to India, example I am telling, and government puts a tax, heavy tax on that, that is called as trade barrier. Why the tax is put? So that many goods don't come to India. Because if many goods will come to India, our producers will go in loss. So that is the way earlier the government used to do. Now the next part, the government could also place a limit on the number of goods that can be imported. Now it's up to the government that it can fix the goods also, that how many number of goods will come to India. This is also known as quota. Quota means a fixed amount. Quota means a part of the bread, a part of a pizza, that is a quota is called. In the same way, a part of the goods. So, how much goods come to India or how much of goods will go out of India, that is fixed by the government. If it is fixed by the government, that is called as quota. Can you explain, using the example of Chinese toys, how quotas can be used as trade barriers? You have to use the example of the Chinese toys and you have to tell that how the government can use these quotas. Do you think this should be used? Discuss. Now, if you see the Chinese toys, there was no quota fixed by the government. There was free trade. That is why many Chinese toys came to India. When many Chinese toys came to India, what happened? Our producers went into great loss. If this has to be stopped, then the government can fix a quota. That means only a limited amount of the goods, that is the limited amount of toys only will come to India from China. Then what will happen? then our producers will not go in loss. So do you think this should be used? Yes, it should be used, because if we use these quotas, if the government use these quotas, our producers will not go in a loss. That's the answer for this question, children. And that completes your liberalization part. We have the next part, which I'll just tell you and then stop. World Trade Organization is an international organization which controls the trade in the world. What is the objective of World Trade Organization or WTO? The objective of WTO is to liberalize international trade. That means WTO asks all the countries of the world to open their trade. That means there should be no restriction on trade in the world. There should be complete free open trade. No quota should be fixed. No barriers should be there. No restriction should be there. That is what WTO wants. Do you know? WTO is started at the initiative of the developed countries. The funds for the working of WTO is given by developed countries like China, Britain, France, Russia, US. These are the countries which are giving lot of financial aid or funds to WTO. And that is why WTO establishes rules regarding international rules, and it sees that these rules are obeyed by 164 countries of which are the member countries of this WTO. But WTO is partial with the developed countries. That means, do you know what do you mean by partiality? So I know everybody knows what is partiality. So WTO is partial to developed countries. That means there are many developed countries like Britain, France, and many European countries, US, Russia. They don't allow free trade because they don't want their producers to go in loss. Then also WTO is not able to do anything against them because WTO is funded or given money by these countries. On the other side, developing countries like India, WTO forces our countries like India, developing countries like India, to open the trade. That means it says that developing countries like India, we should not put any restrictions. There should be free trade. Any foreign country can come to India and trade. But on the other side, it allows the developed countries to put restrictions. Again, I am explaining. WTO is a partial organization because it is funded by the developed countries. So, वो support करता है developed countries को किस लिए? ताकि वो अपने ट्रेड को restrict कर सके, वो अपने producers को protect कर सके. वो बहुत ज्यादा ट्रेड नहीं आने देता अपनी कंट्री में. If all producers of India want to go to Britain and establish their company, Britain will not allow. क्योंकि ऐसा होगा तो their company producers will go in loss. But on the other side, if Britain producers want to come to India and establish their companies, India has to allow because that is the rule set by WTO. That is why I am calling WTO as a partial organization. So that's what is given here. WTO, though WTO is supposed to allow free trade, it is seen that developed countries have unfairly retained trade barriers. Developed countries ने अपने countries में trade barrier लगा रखा है. On the other hand, WTO rules have forced the developing countries to remove the trade barriers. जबकि उसने हमारे जैसी countries को बोला है कि trade barriers को remove कर दो. So for that, there is a very good example given over here, which is called as the current debate on trade agricultural products. In America, there is only 5% of the farmers who are in agriculture in comparison to India, where there are 60% of the farmers in agriculture. So 5% agriculturist जो हैं US में, they don't invest any money from their pocket. The investment is done by the US government because US government supports its farmers. As per WTO, we cannot support But US is supporting their farmers. They have only 0.5% of the farmers. So America invests money from their pocket, not the farmers. So even if the farmer is selling at just 100 rupees per kg of any product, there is no loss. But in India, 60% of farmers, do you think our government will be able to invest for everyone? Government cannot invest. So the farmers invest. If a farmer is investing 100 rupees from his pocket, will he be able to sell at 100 rupees? Definitely not. That means from pocket he is putting 100 rupees, he cannot sell at 100 rupees. But a US farmer is selling his goods at 100 rupees. So our farmers are competing with the farmers of the world, which we cannot do. क्योंकि हमारा प्राइस 150 रुपीज होगा तो उनका तो 100 ही होगा. So the consumers will buy the goods from the US farmer, not from India. So that is what is the question now. Our many developing countries like India are asking WTO a question. What is the question? Is this a free and fair trade? क्योंकि WTO उनको तो कुछ नहीं बोल रहा, but it asks India not to support the farmers. So is this a free and fair trade? That is a question mark here. So that completes your part of WTO, and that also shows that globalization, or in the world there is no free and fair trade. And children, after listening to all these topics, I want all of you to fill these blanks and go through these questions and answer them. And in the next class, we will discuss all of them. And also we'll do the last part of the chapter, that is impact of globalization in India. So that's all, children. Have a good day.